Every club. Every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.
Hello, welcome back to the Daily Forest at GSPN.
Weekly.
Joining us to review the last week or so in Nottingham Forest. A busy week, both on the pitch with a great win yesterday and off the pitch with a surprising England team from our good friend Tommy Tuchel. Joining me to discuss all this is James. James, how are we?
I'm all right, mate. Forest of magic on off the pitch. You know, it's all over the place. I mean, that Thomas who he clearly he's not heard of the Premier League, has he?
Yeah, it's such a weird situation. I think he's been seen at three Forest matches. He was certainly there against Ipswich in the FA Cup, and maybe. Yeah, definitely at least three. I think the Liverpool game, I think he was there, and one other. So the fact that Gibbs-White, who has improved a lot even since the start of the season when Carsley picked him, that was like, oh, fair enough. Carsley knew him from the England under-21s. But I think Gibbs-White has only got better and better since then, which means it's quite even more strange that he's not on that team.
Yeah, it's a bit of a weird one. I mean, you look at who he did pick and who he chose over Hudson-Odoi, Gibbs-White, people like that. I mean, the big one's Jordan Henderson. That's it, isn't it? You know, Jordan Henderson, I didn't even realise Jordan Henderson was still playing football. Apparently he's only played in one of Ajax's last 8 games.
Yeah, he's a club captain who doesn't start, so he's a bit like our Ryan Yates. He comes on for the last 10 minutes every now and then when they need someone to put a tackle in. But yeah, if you can't really, international football has moved on. You can't be selecting players like that. But before we overwrite anything that Marley said, let's go live to him from the East Bridgeford Garden Centre. He can give his thoughts, and we'll add on top of that as well. We don't want to repeat him.
Right, it's Marley, and obviously the first place I want to open up is the video that went on TikTok on Friday. It's the England squad. Potentially 4, definitely 3 Forest players with a shout. 0 selected. 1 in the under-21s for me. Disgrace. I don't like Tuchel's squad at all, even taking Forest out of the equation, but with being a Forest podcast, I don't know what more Gibbs-White, Anderson and Hudson-Odoi can do to get call-ups, especially looking at the fact that Henderson was picked and Gibbs-White wasn't. But even looking at potential of Ryan Yates deserves it more than Jordan Henderson. And I just think it's worrying because although, it means that our players won't be getting injured or getting tired on international duty, it could even motivate them. But it also kind of means that there's a risk of them wanting to leave to get more chance of playing for England from a different club. And that is very worrying.
Yeah, I think that's, if I had to say, a concern from a Forest point of view. I mean, well, there would have been 2. The first would be that Gibbs-White would be demotivated. We saw yesterday that was not the case at all. He was his usual all-action self in this new, slightly deeper role. I think the concern going forward is that if he thinks that even for helping Forest finish 3rd, potentially 2nd, and even getting into the Champions League, if he's still not playing for England, then that could lead to him wanting out. That's my biggest concern here.
Well, Tuchel was asked about it, wasn't he? And he mentioned the Champions League and said, these players, they might be doing really well, but other players are doing really well too, and other players are doing really well week in, week out in the Champions League. But then there are other players that were picked, who aren't playing Champions League football, who are, Eze, people like that.
Yeah, I mean, Eze wasn't even in the last Carsley squad. I think Eze was in the Euros, but it's since faded out the picture. So yeah, he's not in the Champions League. Jared Bowen not in the Champions League. Jordan Henderson, Ajax in the Europa League. It's a weird answer that even if you look at Kyle Walker, he might be playing in the Champions League for AC Milan, but so are Fikayo Tomori and Ruben Loftus-Cheek. So that's a very strange one as well. So each answer Tuchel gave kind of opened up, okay, if that's the case with this guy, then that rules out the next guy. So it's very inconsistent in his answerings.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe he just didn't like the catering at Forest or something like that. But even Ryan Yates ahead of Henderson, you know. But I mean, it brings us a bit to yesterday's game, because Nuno started Gibbs-White at number 8 basically, rather than number 10, because Tuchel was saying he sees Gibbs-White as number 10, Anderson as number 8, and Hudson-Odoi is a winger, and that there's a lot of competition for all of those places. Henderson, number 8, or slightly deeper possibly. But, Gibbs-White started there yesterday and really showed that he can make that position his own as well, that he's versatile in, screening the defence, coming back, and then linking the play to the attacking players.
Yeah, I think we've seen that a lot. Certainly the worry at the start of the season was that Gibbs-White and Anderson would rotate for the number 10 role, but they've both proven that there's so much more than that. In these last 2 games, Forest's off-the-ball shape has been 4-4-2, with Gibbs-White and Anderson as the 2 together, and then Elanga as in the free role further forward. And yeah, I watched the game live, but I watched the match of the day highlights this morning as well. They highlighted just how often Gibbs-White dropped deep, even at time in the first half. Even it looked like he was a third centre back alongside Lenkovic and Murillo. So yeah, like he's proved his point. If that was even a factor in his mind, that he needs to show Tuchel what he's missing. And yeah, there's a short time before this World Cup, but hopefully Gibbs-White will have a really strong finish of the season, and he'll be in the England team for that game at the City Ground in June.
Yeah, well, silver lining to all this, no injuries to those key players on international duty, so no chance of that. Get them away, give them some rest, let them go, somewhere nice for 4 or 5 days, somewhere hot, chill out, relax, and come back ready to absolutely smash the last 9 games. And the FA Cup, come on, 12 games with the FA Cup final.
Of course, yeah. It's a strange timing for the season. There was now such a long gap in between league games. We've got this international break. Then the FA Cup, like you say, there's only March. Yesterday was 15th of March. That's the end of our league this month, which is strange. Do you think that breakup of rhythm will be an issue, or do you think modern sports science is smart enough that they'll give the players not an international duty enough training to keep them ticking over, and then we'll see a full strength team in that Brighton game in 2 weeks?
I think we'll see a full strength team. I think we'll see exactly what we saw yesterday. The same Sells in net, absolute stalwart in net now. No reason for him not to be there. Back 4, very predictable now. You got Eminem in the middle, laying it out smooth. Murillo, Maranakis. Then you've got Williams and Aina on the wings. Funnily enough, on opposite wings to where you'd naturally maybe have put them a couple of years ago. And then in the middle, like you were saying, we've got Anderson, Dominguez, and Gibbs-White there, screening the back four and linking that play. And then up front, again, standard, Wood and Hudson-Odoi and Elanga, but a little bit more controversial or different, like you were saying, the last few games. They've been overloading the wings by putting Elanga in that free role. Going from side to side, and Hudson-Odoi sometimes as well, them two switching. But I noticed a lot more yesterday, Elanga playing through the middle off of Wood, and a lot of chances coming from that, and his second goal coming from that.
Yeah, I think to take a short break and then come back to the match review, but that is one point of action that was actually Chris Wood was not really as involved as he has been before due to how Elanga was dominating through the middle. So we'll play our first ad and we'll hear from Marley, and then we'll go through that game and ask what our thoughts are in terms of that attacking lineup for the remaining few games of the season.
Your body is unique, and Global Sports Podcast Network has partnered with Bioniq, the world's most personalised supplements. Bioniq provide 100% tailor-made supplements designed to deliver precisely what your body needs at exactly the right levels to optimize your health. No guessing. So click the link in the show notes. Use the code GSPN2025 for 40% off your first month's subscription. Bioniq. Don't settle for off-the-shelf solutions made for just anybody. Get what's right for you right now.
Now, yesterday. Obviously, never got to reflect on the 0-0 draw of Arsenal or the 1-0 win against Manchester City. Two exceptional results for the club, but a 4-2 win against Ipswich Town yesterday. Great game, great performance. Some great goals in there. Milenkovic with striker's instinct as such to score his first, and his assist for Elanga's second was sensational. It's what I'd expect from Murillo. I don't think the performance was quite as good as people say it was. We beat, for lack of better words, a very, very poor side. And I do think that with the defending we had, especially early in the first half, another team would have battered us in that first half, or at least that first 20 minutes. But attackingly, we were really good. Game management was pretty decent, and glad Jota Silva got a goal. Bit concerned that Souza's not been in the squad, but hopefully there's nothing bad about it. And looking forward to the international break. And then it's United at home, which genuinely think we win. Come on, you Reds.
Yeah, some interesting points Marley raised. He says it's not as good a performance as some others are saying, but I guess on my side, how often have we seen Forest go up against a team towards the bottom of the league and not score 4 against them? I get Marley's point that this wasn't the 7-0 Brighton. It wasn't the 2 goals were perhaps a concern, but ultimately, if you want to finish top 3, you've got to be swatting aside the teams in the relegation zone, and that's what we did.
You know what? I timed the goals, right? And I know what Marley's saying. I know what he's saying, yeah. For some vast swathes of the game, we had some poor spells, especially towards the end when Ipswich got there too, although their goals were good. You know, their goals were very good goals. It wasn't like we had really bad defending and they were just bungled over the line. But the first goal from Milenkovic, obviously from a corner, you know, dropped lucky for us in the middle of the goal, and amazing striker's finish, you know, and the composure right in front of goal, not to put it over or miss, controlled it and smashed it into the back of the net. But the second, third, and fourth goals, from the point that we turned over the ball in defence, within 10 seconds the ball was in the net at the other end of the pitch. Which says to me, Marley, we only need to play well for 10 seconds a game.
Yeah, completely. I think that's, again, in the lead up to the game, people were pointing out that Ipswich and Forest, the bottom of the possession table, Forest will struggle to break them down because they're not used to dominating the teams on the ball, with Exeter in the FA Cup being the cited example there. But no, you're completely right. If this is going to be a game of low blocks, counterattack versus counterattack, it becomes who has the better players, and it was clear throughout that was us. We mentioned Milenkovic. I mean, it is quite. I need to check the assist stats, but everyone says Murillo is the creative ball-playing defender, and Milenkovic is the big man mountain. But that was Milenkovic's 4th goal of the season. Murillo scored just once. Milenkovic got an assist as well. So yeah, maybe we've not been giving Milenkovic as much credit for his on-the-ball contributions as much as we have for his human brick wall contributions.
Yeah, Milenkovic was epic yesterday, like you said, defending, attacking. He was all over it. I mean, Ipswich at times, you were saying about possession, they didn't know what to do with possession because we get back in such a good shape. I remember at times in the first half, they'd have the ball in their half towards the halfway line. And I remember their defenders just looking and being like, where do you want me to go? Where do you want me to go? Like, there's no ball on, because people they weren't finding the gaps between the lines, they weren't finding the spaces, because again, they're a low block team, they're not used to having it. Whereas I think when it comes to us like that, we can play that tick-attacker and find the space between the lines with people like Anderson, Hudson-Odoi, Gibbs-White darting into the box. We showed that in the second half with the Chris Wood effort, with the ball being passed square across the box to Chris Wood around the penalty spot. You're thinking goal number 4 nailed on Chris Wood with his customary goal, and unfortunately his shot was a little bit soft right in the middle of the goal on the ground, and the keeper just managed to kind of belly flop on it. But I think that's the difference. That's the difference between where we were a couple of years ago under Cooper. We were, top in the Premier League for these breakaway goals. But then when it came to actually handling the ball and defending with it, we couldn't do that. We'd not made that step. Whereas I think under Nuno, we've now made that step forwards into being able to not only break, but defend. And then on top of defending, handle the ball when we're in possession. Because it doesn't seem like a game. I've never sat in a game and thought, oh my gosh, the other team's just dominating with the ball. And we have only got 20-30% of possession. You always seems like we're doing something.
Yeah, completely. We are so efficient and effective with it. You're right. We go back to City and Arsenal. Of course, the recent games that Marley mentioned that we didn't cover in as much detail in the podcast. But you're right. Even though I don't know what the possession stats were, it never felt like an onslaught against those two teams. It didn't feel like we had our backs against the wall the whole time, because most of this possession, it was around the centre circle. It was even in the opponent's team half. So we are that good in knowing exactly when to press, exactly when to go on the counter, and exactly when to hit the teams on the break. When it got to 3-1, just to pick one of the goals as an example, Ipswich then there you could hear the noise in the stadium change. There was certainly that they could sense 3-2, but then suddenly bang bang bang, it was 4-1. Yates won the ball, Tyro held it up, Yates, Gibbs-White, Jota, and then it was 4-1. The game was finally put to bed. So that was, I would say my favourite goal of the four, just because it did silence any hope of a comeback. The fact that Yates, who had been maybe pushed off the ball a bit too easily for Ipswich's goal, and the fact that he, not known for his passing, had that vision to
was a good pass.
Give it to Taiwo and get it straight up to Gibbs-White, who then, of course, saw Jota. So possibly, although all goals were great and had their merits, that fourth one was possibly my favourite of the four yesterday.
Yeah, absolutely. But mentioning that fourth goal, and just back to, I guess, what Marley was saying about Souza. So the Jota versus Souza situation, the club tried to get rid of Souza in January. I think it was to Fiorentina or someone like that, or I can't remember. But they tried to get rid of him and refused to go. Wanted to fight for his place. Fair enough. But I think if we were to put, first of all, the argument, Souza's left-sided, Jota's right-sided. And if you look at the games out of Ilanga and Hudson-Odoi, Ilanga's the one that's usually flagging towards 70 minutes and coming off at that point, so explosive. We do channel a lot of our play down that right-hand side, so you can understand why we want a direct kind of swap for Ilanga there, so that kind of gives Jota over Souza there. But I think whether it's Jota or Souza in the middle from that Gibbs-White pass, they both score. And I kind of worry about Jota in his defensive efforts. Gives a lot of free kicks away on the edge of the box, tackling back on that right-hand side. And the second goal for Ipswich yesterday, his leap was poor. He looks lost against that player. I know he's the shortest guy on the pitch. Why he was there at the back post, we knew Ipswich were going to go back post. That's where they scored against us in the FA Cup. That's where they went with all their corners yesterday. Jota was the man who gave him the free header. So, for me, it's 6-1 does the other. I just think he edges it because of that right side thing with Ilanga needing time at the end of the game.
Yeah, so earlier in the season, or for much of the first half of the season, because, of course, Danilo and Sangare were both out. That meant, of course, due to our small squad size, Jota and Souza were both on the bench because we had nobody else, Nuno liking that small squad. So we were often seeing, you're right, if it was Ilanga flagging first, on came Jota. Then in the second wave of substitutions, around minute 85, it would be Souza for Hudson-Odoi and Taiwo for Chris Wood. That's a move we saw quite often in that first half of the season. But now we're completely fully fit, apart from Carlos Miguel. which means that if you look at that makeup of the bench, there's just no room for Jota and Souza, because both Hudson-Odoi and Elanga did come off yesterday. But one of them, I think it was Elanga, who was replaced by Morato. So that's, of course, not an attacking substitution. It was the extra centre-back. And if there was ever a game where Hudson-Odoi and Elanga both got injured, then Jota is the first reserve for one of them. And if the second one then needs to come off, then bring on Sangare and push Anderson out wide, push Dominguez out wide. So you have flexibility in the squad, which means you don't need two specialist wingers. Look at the rest of the bench. Bolly didn't come on, but he is a great influence around the dressing room. Milenkovic got that knock, so even though we'd already used Morato, there could have been a need for Bolly to have stepped on as well. Moreno is the fullback cover, and then Danilo and Yates both offer something different in central midfield. So I think it's because we are fortunate enough to have everyone fit. It's fine for me that we don't have both Souza and Jota on the bench. And you're right, Jota marginally better, offers something marginally different. But like you say, if it had been Souza coming off the bench, he would have scored that goal too, and probably he would have defended poorly for that second Ipswich goal as well. So
maybe.
Yeah,
I just think Milenkovic or someone should have been back there. They wouldn't have scored if we'd have had a proper defender at the back post. Anyway, I want to give a shout out to Sideburns and Ramesh and the team. That our medical team, Sideburns and Ramesh guys, are the physios at the game. You've got
Sideburns going viral and various lazy Oasis puns throughout the time. You'll picture him definitely if you've watched any Forest game this season.
Yeah. But the medical team are doing an amazing job, or it's just a fluke of a medical injury season, because since Sangare and Danilo, I don't know if we just got all of our bad luck with Danilo's broken ankle at the beginning of the season, but I can only remember Miguel being injured. Everyone else, other than the odd broken nose out for a game, get a shield on, off you go. Owoni, Williams. I cannot remember another one where you're like, he's going to be out for the 6 week with a hamstring. He's going to be out. The fitness team, the warm-up team must be doing amazing, getting them warm before the games, in training, handling any knocks, because they're guaranteed all professional football players are playing with a knock, playing with some sort of pain after the years that they're, wear and tear they put on their bodies. But yeah, just an amazing job from the medical team.
Yeah, completely. It's definitely a full team atmosphere that Nuno has built, that everyone is certainly contributing to. So we'll play the second advert, and then we'll spend the last bit of the podcast talking about general big picture stuff and how we realistically see the next 6 months going, so including a look at the summer as well.
Here at the Global Sports Podcast Network, we spent a lot of time selecting our delivery platform, and Zencastr came out the clear winner. With 4K video recording from your phone and AI editing that automatically removes all those ums and ahs, it's super easy to start a podcast that sounds great and is delivered efficiently. If you're ready to tell your story, check out the link in the show description to learn more about Zencastr.
So here's something that I saw during the week. They announced the teams for the Premier League Summer Series, so the Cup in USA. I think it's Everton, Crystal Palace, Bournemouth and Man United. I'm surprised we weren't there. I know it's not a big thing playing in some preseason tournament in America, but knowing the ambition of Maranakis and his desire to grow Forest, I would have thought that would be the type of thing we would be signing up for. So maybe we have some other plans to play Olympiacos again, or prepare for our trip into Europe some other way. But no, I would have thought we would have had our eye on such a commercial opportunity.
Commercially, yes. Squad-wise, I don't think so. The first thing that comes to me is all the moaning last season about Tottenham people going to Australia and then coming back and moaning about fixture congestion. When you're whoring your players around the world. Yes, for commercial revenue. Yes, to get more fans, but then don't moan. We've got a small squad. This summer isn't going to be a rebuild things. This is something I want to talk about as well with Nuno and his small squads. We're going to have much larger squad next season in order to handle the fixture congestion, in order to handle having to rotate You know, can the players handle the midweek games and the cup games and everything else that comes with European football and the travel? Who knows? We don't know, and suck it and see. But yeah, I don't think it's a bad thing that we're not on some big summer tour. I do think it will happen in the future, but I think this summer needs to be a time to, batten down the hatches, make sure everyone's fit and ready to go 120% in August.
Yeah, I mean, I'll need to check this exactly, but of course, in Nuno's first full year in the Premier League at Wolves, they came seventh, made the Europa League. Then that following year, they came seventh again and also made the Europa League quarterfinals. So he has proved that he was able to balance the squad in terms of maintaining the league form and also having a good run deep into the Europa League. So what's interesting is that he was able to rotate quite a bit. So Morgan Gibbs-White, back then a young talent, I think a big percentage of his total Wolves appearances came in that European season. Because he was not in Nuno's Premier League first 11, but he was trusted to play a lot in Europe. And we don't really have that. We don't have an equivalent of a young Gibbs-White who can play in our European games, especially if we're Champions League, not Europa League. That's another step above as well. So it will be a different challenge. I would expect to see probably eight new players at least if we go into the Champions League. That's to replace the likes of Jota, Souza, Toffolo, Bolly, and also to fill the gaps because we aren't even up to 25 players anyway. So is this an exciting challenge, or is that perhaps or will that even be part of the challenge? Keeping a squad of 25 instead of 20 happy will be a bigger challenge than getting ourselves up for a night under the City Ground lights against Real Madrid. So I think in one-off games, I think there'll be one or two famous wins. Villa beat Bayern Munich at home in the group stage. We will, I think, if we get a huge team at home, we will win 1-0. It'll go down for the ages. But then the challenge will be Bournemouth away that next weekend, and who plays which, and how do we keep them motivated and fit for both.
Yeah, you know what? I think, one, get the right players, always. Get the right attitude. At the minute, they've done that well. Hudson-Odoi, Elanga, Aina, people like that. Absolutely smashing it. The South American contingent, you see the videos of them hanging out together and singing and dancing. Amazing. I think Nuno will be able to pick out the Harry Arters pretty easily. So we don't want a bad apple to ruin the bunch, but I think any player looking at stepping up to the Champions League, we might not get your Ronaldo. Well, Ronaldo, we don't want him, but your Bellinghams and people like that. But if we're looking at Wissa, people like that, who we've sounded out already and want to step up, I think Forest is your Forest and your Aston Villas, perfect places to go because you're guaranteed to be involved. Because Wood's not going to do 34 next season. He's not going to be playing every game. Wood might be one-on-one off in the league, and starting in the Champions League. And then we're going to need another one-off in the league and possibly the cup matches. So there's definitely going to be room for another kind of, not number 2 striker, but number 1 striker. Because Wood can't carry it like he has this season, next season. So I think the other thing, when you're looking at midfield, we are quite settled right now with our formation with a few backups, but like you were saying about Jota and Souza and people like that, we need some better cover. I think we need, almost like I said with the up front, we need 2 number 1s in every position.
Yeah, which is exactly what with the exception of that central midfield where Yates and Dominguez and Danilo sometimes rotate. We need 22 number 1 players at the moment. It's probably 14 players Nuno really trusts at the moment, and the rest are in the use if he has to camp. I think we can certainly do a much needed wildcard Wednesday during the international break where we do a squad audit. We go through everyone currently in our 22, 23 man squad, see who we keep, who we sell, and who we don't mind, who we'd happy to keep as a backup. So I think that certainly would make for an interesting episode. And of course, we can already begin to speculate about any dream names or any realistic names, such as Johan Wesser, who would be liking to sign for the next year.
Yeah, I think one thing I want to mention before we go is the boardroom changes, because I don't think any of us or Maranakis was expecting to have to make these changes this season and so soon. But there's definitely a dividing of the waves between us and Olympiacos beginning, because the ruling from UEFA is because we all know you can't have two clubs that you have a controlling interest in the same European competition. Okay, so we can't have Olympiacos and Nottingham Forest in the Champions League. Olympiacos are predicted to be in the Champions League next season, as are Forest. So what happens if we both are and Maranakis can't set up the business in the right way, and we fall foul of the rule, is that Olympiacos would remain in the Champions League and Forest would be relegated to the Europa League, because it goes on Champions League points, and those points are calculated on previous involvement in the Champions League.
Our point bank is slightly empty after a multi-decade absence.
We got like 22 and Olympiacos have got 40 something like that. You know, your Real Madrids and stuff have got like 180 points.
100, yeah.
We're never going to get there, but it puts us in pot 4 and it puts Olympiacos in pot 3. So we, even though we're doing better right now, and you'd say we're the bigger team of Olympiacos and Forest, because of that past involvement, we would be relegated to the Europa League. So Maranakis, come on, I know you're an amazing businessman to get this far, and let's hope that the lawyers can divvy everything up between him and his son and sort it out.
Yeah, I think you're completely right. It is an important point to note, but it is something that you can quite simply get round, like Man City and Girona. Girona both part of the City Football Group, but they were both in the Champions League this year. I think the other thing to note, we won't be able to loan players to Olympiacos anymore.
No.
Because to prove when they're nothing to do with us, then so that we joked about Jota and Souza downloading Greek on Duolingo. They'll be spared at a trip to Olympiacos, because that will be off the table if we're both in that same European competition. But what a nice problem to have when Olympiacos were giving us players like Cafu and Nelson Oliveira. The fact that we would one day come up against them in Champions League is such a nice problem to have.
Yeah, and we were losing our best players to Olympiacos.
Like Thiago Silva. I know we lost Thiago Silva to Olympiacos, but now it's we are the senior team in the partnership.
Come on, you Reds.
Come on, you Reds. We'll be back soon.
Every club, every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.